By the time Owen got arrested, all our court cases had been resolved and dealt with, but I did a couple of years to really mull about the unconstitutional nature of the law and what it would require in court to prove that they violated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. And so I've gone to a lot of other court cases and studied things. The Barron trial, I was in court almost 50 days just watching those proceedings. And so this has been a particular...
I was sitting beside you, don't you remember?
I was sitting a lot too, yeah. When we got to
that was a long trial.
It was, yeah.
That was like
especially because it was here in Vancouver, so that didn't help.
Yeah, in the first judge passed away in that case, so that was a long case. But as you evolved now with your own charges, now that became you lost at the BC Supreme Court level.
Well, I guess I lost with that one with the club, but then the charges got thrown out at the Court of Appeal level, which was frustrating. But so we beat every charge laid with the Buyers Club, but I was convicted for a UVIC, got a $500 fine, and the day in jail for the cookie giveaway. But by the time Owen came around, all the charges were said and done, and that was kind of nice. But yeah, in a way, when Owen was arrested, it was a surreal day. It was something that I think many of the police officers knew that there could be a very potentially important precedent set from the case. That it was almost like the wheels of history were in motion, that we were all kind of just watching each other in some sort of play that was, like they didn't even put cuffs on Owen when they threw him in the car. They didn't treat him like a criminal at all.
I was going to say, you must have anticipated after all your years of looking at this and reviewing the case law and looking at how to do this, you must have known even when the minute you heard that Owen was arrested, not so much about, oh my God, my baker's in jail, but this.
Oh yeah, this was it. Yeah, oh, I knew it.
Awesome.
We'd been preparing for it. Not that I wanted it to happen, but we knew the likelihood of getting arrested. We were in like one of the sketchiest departments in Victoria, which is why one of the rules was there was no pot in there at all. Owen actually had a half a gram on him that he was smoking for his break, which was what gave him a possession charge too, which really kind of sucked because otherwise it would have been just strictly nothing but derivatives in there, which was really part of our strategy, was to make sure that it was free and clear of anything but the extracts, because I knew that was different in some ways. And it was funny because the police afterwards, after the raid, when we first went to court, there was nothing on the docket. And it was something that I actually sent out press releases saying, hey, there's no charges. And I forget which media it was, but somebody reported, hey, it looks like the Owen case, this is months after even we appeared in court. We gave it some time. But sure enough, right after we said something, all of a sudden we're back in court again. It was like they forgot about it or something, I don't know. But I forget how we were told, but the police were really hoping somebody with a license from Health Canada would show up and just claim it so they could drop it all. They were really hoping Gail had a license at the time, she didn't. And so, yeah, I think they would have dropped it if they had the opportunity, but I didn't want that to happen. I really wanted to pursue it. So I was glad when the charges went ahead and they charged Owen with this.
At what point did Mr. Tusaw decide that he was going to engage and take this on? And he must have also seen this.
Man. Honestly, I hired another lawyer first. I hired a local lawyer. Kirk lived in Vancouver at the time. So yeah, he was working for John Conroy over there, but I wanted someone that I knew, someone that was local, and he helped me deal with some of the earlier stuff. Luckily, in so many ways, he realized that it wasn't the best case for him, that he really wanted to be in family law. He was willing to do it, but he didn't want to take on a Supreme Court of Canada case like this, and he saw the potential for that. And he said, look, find a lawyer who would put themselves behind it instead of me, because his time was more focused on that. He couldn't afford a long trial and stuff. And so at that point, I decided that I was gonna just pay through the friggin' nose and hire both John and Kirk and just go both guns blazing. And so we did that, but that was right at the very time that Kirk, unbeknown to me, was moving to Vancouver Island. and setting up his own practice. So it was a little awkward because in a way, I think, I could be wrong, but I was like part of the push towards that decision happening. But either way, Kirk was able to put his teeth into it long before we had the actual trial.
I was going to say, he must have seen the teeth in it, because he's a young and upcoming superstar. He must have seen merit in the case early on and said, I'm going to take this and I'm going to run with this. And just like yourself, you've seen it. And of course, many activists also seen it. Yeah. You know, it's a matter of, will this case go forward? And especially after, what was the first, Justice Johnson? Or Judge Johnson? Yeah. After that decision, that rang, you know, bells around the country, you know, for people that have been paying attention. And here we are now, moving forward. Now you've had to fund this case, the Cannabis Buyers Clubs of Canada.
Yeah, I've been kind of the engineer behind it, I guess. It's hard to come up with the right term because, you know, Kirk in some ways is the quarterback in the courtroom. But yeah, I'm the one that decided, for example, Dr. Pate should be the expert witness. Kirk had never worked with Dr. Pate before, didn't know of him even. And so one of the things I learned when I watched the Barron trial, Kirk referred to it later as the rifle approach as opposed to the shotgun approach of the Barron trial, where they had so many expert witnesses, but none of them hit home runs. You know, like they were all like making really good points, but ultimately, you know, it was much more spread out, where we just went with one expert witness. I knew Dr. Pate was the man, that he knew the plant scientifically enough that the law would appear absurd with his evidence, that I knew we didn't need to provide more. I knew enough about patient testimony and the limitations of patient testimony to think that we only needed a small handful of patients. Again, you know, kind of more a bullet approach than a shotgun approach. You know, somewhat like the Allard decision, right, where you pick the sort of the best of the bunch. And unfortunately, there were limitations. Some of the people that have benefited the most from cannabis extracts couldn't testify for one reason or another. So it wasn't like we had our kind of best medical cases before the courts, but we had really good testimony from 4 ladies, including my partner Gail Quinn, and that was sufficient. The breaking point, if there was one, or one of the breaking points, was when one of the ladies, Gina Herman, was testifying and talking about making a cannabis tea. And it was pointed out, I think by Kirk, that that was illegal, that you broke the law as soon as you strained out the leaf. And the judge looked at the Crown and he said, is that true? Is that really what we're here about, is whether this patient can make tea? And the Crown kind of hummed and hawed and was like, yeah, that's what it's about. And at that point, the judge was like, okay, well, you know, the tone sort of changed. You could see he wasn't so happy with what he had been told. And so, yeah, it was, I think, perfectly played out in many ways. We didn't exhaust the court, you know, in some ways, with too many witnesses, too much information, just really cutting information. The other part that was just brilliant in a way that none of us could have forecasted was the absolute dismal failure of Health Canada to adequately defend itself. Did Owen talk about Dr. Obramovich and what he did in court? Because Owen's a nice guy. He wouldn't slam this guy like I will.
No, you go ahead, slam him, give her. That's what we're here for. We want all sides of the story.
Okay, so you got Health Canada here, right? They're saying, no, this is wrong, and they're going to send an expert witness, right? Their top scientist to tell us that we're wrong, okay? Well, they don't really have one, in part because the old expert witness that they had is retired. He's into his 80s now, Dr. Harold Callant. Well, he's gone now. And so they don't have anybody that actually does any research for Health Canada. As you know, that's not something that they do. So they don't have somebody that tests. The best they could throw was Dr. Obramovich, who only spent 3 months putting together a compilation of research documents that's put out as a statement for healthcare practitioners on medical cannabis. So it goes through all the different conditions, all the different research, and you know, in some ways does a fairly good job, although it's obviously really written in in very restricted language, and you know, it notes potential at times that it should state that there is benefit, and it doesn't indicate potential in places that it should. So it's like, it's lacking, don't get me wrong, but for Health Canada, it's a step in the right direction. It makes a lot of acknowledgements, talks and refers to a whole bunch of studies on cannabis extracts even in different ways, and cookies and stuff like that too. So like, you know, it's really quite misleading that they'd say it's illegal and then give out this, you know, document that talks about studying it with these different extracts. But anyhow, Dr. Abramovich was providing evidence based upon his, you know, putting together these studies. And when he submitted his affidavit, I wasn't really thinking that there was any problems with it. You know, it wasn't a very strong affidavit, but Kirk just kept picking away about the conclusions. Where'd they come from? Who came up with them? Who helped you? And all of a sudden, the guy admits that his boss from another department in Health Canada, who's basically not even a scientist, wrote the conclusions in his formal affidavit.
Oh, wow.
And he cut and pasted those conclusions from an email into his legal affidavit, that those are his conclusions of his scientific opinion.
Well, that's pretty destructive.
And you know, he told the judge, you know, that he agreed with them, and the judge was really upset. The judge probably would have been willing to throw out his testimony if Kirk had asked, but Kirk didn't want to do that because it could have been an appealable issue. So rather than try and throw them out, he just basically thought the judge would give it no weight, and he didn't. Like the Abramovich's opinion, if you read the judgment, Dr. Pate's got like 6 pages almost of opinion that is cited like scientific evidence, this, that, bang, 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 all the qualities of cannabis resin and THC and extracts. And then there's like a couple paragraphs of Abramovich that aren't very...
I was going to say, the one thing now I was there in Vancouver to watch Kurt's Factum. As you know, we spoke on the phone after the decision. I was there well, the decision happened different times, but for his actual Factum argument, I was there to hear that, and I heard the Crown's. Now the Crown came across was saying just 3 of the people weren't licensed at the time of Owen's arrest, blah, 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 blah. Never challenging the science. Mm-hmm. And that's what we've always said.
Yeah, no, it's challenging standing, which is a whole other matter that opens it up to make it legal for everybody else if there's an unconstitutional breach. If there's a constitutional breach with cannabis extracts for patients, then that means it's basically unconstitutional for everybody. Yeah. And that's what they really don't like.
That's exactly, and that's why I like that this is, and again, for our viewers, this is the first medical marijuana case to go to the Supreme Court of Canada. You know, this is the first one. You know, we have a medical marijuana program, and I hate the fact that they say there's a marijuana for medical purposes program when Canada holds that there's no medical value to marijuana. What a hypocrisy we live in.
It's crazy to think that it's an authorized drug, but not an approved drug. There's a difference.
That's right. Okay, so now forward looking, now you're headed to the SCC.
Yeah, baby.
Financially, you're going to be able to fund this, and Kurt's going to be able to take this there. What do you see now? Unfortunately, the courts don't legislate, so this goes back now to the politicians. Just like in our case, you know, they're going to legislate what reasonable access is to a garden. In your case, they're going to decide what extractions are. What is your forecast aside from the common sense, like solventless would be a kind of easy forecast, but do you think they would be over restrictive, only allow LPs?
I don't think they'll be able to. I think this decision will both protect patients' rights to have cannabis extracts, make cannabis extracts, and have them provided to them. I hope it goes that way. You know, we'll see how the judges speak and question Kirk.
There's 9 judges this time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, you know, it's
weighing the same evidence.
Real gamble. I've never dealt with a Supreme Court case, medical or not, really. So this is all new.
And you're going to be there front row and center, of course, watching it.
Yeah, right beside Owen, that's for sure.
Okay, so the forecast now, when they legislate this, again, from our experience in the government, we win courses, they legislate, and then they go back and we have to take them to court again and fight them again. So where do you see this after the SCC again for extractions? For our viewers that may not understand the law and how all this stuff is very intricate and is going to likely play out.
Well, you know, I guess I'm going off on a side tangent for a second, but it almost depends on bigger political issues, because by the time this decision comes down, we'll either have a Liberal government or a Conservative government again.
Good point.
If we have a Liberal government, we could see a good program brought into place, consultation and everything like that, that we would want to see. If we have a Conservative government, which hopefully is less likely, then we're likely to see quite restrictive regulations. We're quite likely to see an attempt to just have licensed producers sell and make cannabis extracts, cited as some sort of health concern. That'll depend on the injunction, though. If the injunction goes patients' ways and patients can have their own gardens, patients can make their own extracts. If they say patients can't make their own extracts, then we may have a tougher time. That part of it is left up in the air. Hopefully, obviously, patients can have their gardens and make their cookies too. We'll see how it goes. None of this is a certainty. But that would be the preferable way to go. I think they'll give the licensed producers a year. I think the licensed producers are probably going to end up going through hell trying to get all the requirements and things that Health Canada will put upon them to put these things out.
Rumor has it some of them are already researching.
Oh, they're begging. They're wanting this to happen. So like when we start going out fundraising for this, they're just as likely as anybody to start kicking in and helping out. Like, because many of them have approached us, as a group to say that they support us in this, and because they're the ones going to benefit. Ironically, the club that's paid for this case for the most part isn't going to benefit financially when we make it legal for licensed producers to make all this stuff. We kind of got a bit of a glory period now where we can sell our products, and we kind of have this loophole where there's no way we're getting convicted until they actually have legal products available. Now, when legal products become available, then our jeopardy increases. But in the time being, we can pretty much go for it.
Have you guys put a package together to actually solicit the LPs and say, look guys, this is going to make your business go up tenfold. You're going to be able to provide Phoenix Tears. You're going to be able to save children. You're going to be able to stop seizures.
That's not been in my hands. Dieter McPherson, who's running the Buyers Club now and doing an excellent job on my behalf, because I'm actually not doing much activism at all. I'm looking after Gail. Dieter's been the one in contact with I think 8 of the presidents of the different LPs. He hasn't talked to Tweed and some of the big guys, but he's been in contact with most of them, and he's working that angle of things. We're putting out a GoFundMe campaign, and we're actually going to do a couple things on St. Patrick's Day, which is the 17th of March, 3 days before this. That's the last. We've kind of switched Medical Marijuana Day to that day. So we're having our art auction. We're probably actually going to do a dunk tank in Victoria and put me and a few other people in it, and try to do a couple other fundraising things to make some money on that day, to try to do some last minute fundraising, because as we get closer to March 20th, the press is really going to catch on to this. So
now if people want to get more involved and start to donate to this case, where would they go to get that information, and who would they contact?
Oh, I guess we've got a few web pages that they could go to. Certainly the Victoria Cannabis Buyers Club. I guess the Cannabis Digest has got lots of stories on the court case that'll have references to the campaign. Those are probably 2 of the better ones to go to. You can join me on Facebook
and the GoFundMe.
Yeah, we're gonna have the GoFundMe.
The GoFundMe, we'll put that up across the screen so people will know how to donate there. And in any other way, is there donating directly to Kurt Tusaw in a trust fund of Owen Smith or anything like that?
We haven't set that up, but certainly any money sent to Kirk on behalf of Owen, he'd take in, that's for sure.
Okay, so to our viewers,
because that would be helpful. Like I say, the Buyers Club has borne the majority of the cost so far. We haven't done a lot of fundraising outside of Victoria or membership. So it's all come out of patients that are already paying stupid extra premiums buying it from the storefront anyway. it's a lot more expensive to buy it from a dispensary than it is from someone growing, or to grow it yourself even,
Well,
right?
even now, there's only a few dispensaries that can actually provide for any, or sorry, LPs that can actually provide for patients, which is why I think there's only 10,000 people accessing the MMPR, and they said there's 1 million people in this country that are estimated to be used medical marijuana. So again, the hypocrisy continues. Ted, thank you for coming on the show. And
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for
You've
coming
been
over.
a great host, and once again, it's been great to see Gail again. And of course, Cannabis of Canada wishes you and her all the best in the ongoing battle ensuing. So
Thank you.
right on. Thanks for coming on the show. We'll see everybody in the next show. Cheers.